This session is about how we can put generative AI to work for L&D. So far we've talked about more general use cases of how generative AI can improve customer service, generative AI can improve productivity, generative AI can do coding for you. But this is an L&D conference. So we're going to figure out how generative AI can help our folks. How can it help improve not just the efficiency, but the effectiveness of training? And when I thought about this the first time, somebody said, everybody's talking about productivity, which is like efficiency. What about this effectiveness? And you heard that yesterday also, right? Most of the discussion around AI was how does it help you improve productivity? And that's what most technologies have done. And I think that's how most technologies get sold in the beginning, because productivity is very easy to put a number on. If you could do something in 10 hours, now you can do it in 2 hours, that's 8 hours saved. But the success of most technologies has not been on how productive you got, but it's been more about what you could do that you could otherwise not do. For example, when a bicycle came out, nobody thought that the bicycle would be a means of improving genetic diversity in the human race. Now imagine, when there was no bicycle, people used to be born, get married, and die within 30 miles of where they were born. 30 miles. That was the radius. And so imagine the genetic diversity that you could achieve within 30 miles. When bicycle came, that changed. The guy who invented the bicycle did not invent the bicycle with the goal of improving genetic diversity. So what starts as an initiative to improve productivity can often lead to things that you could do now, which you could otherwise not do. And I think that's the opportunity that we really have with AI. We all know what good training is. Several times, even though we know what good training is, we are not able to afford it. It costs too much money. Everybody would want flight simulator training to use flight simulator style training to teach their relationship managers. Why not? Because it's so expensive. That's why not. But I think AI, or generative AI more specifically, gives us the power to be more ambitious. And we'll see, let me introduce our chief learning scientist, Dr. Gregg Collins, based out of Chicago. Brandon Dickens heads UX at NIIT, both based out of Chicago. Dr. Collins got his PhD, believe it or not, in AI almost 40 years ago? You don't look that old, though.
Well, we don't have to talk about that.
Now, I've known Gregg now. I've known Gregg for, about 20 years now, or maybe a little bit less than 20 years.
A little more.
Little more. And every year we've had this conversation. I've said, so what can AI do for us? And normally that conversation goes on for about an hour, and it ends with a lot of skepticism on Gregg's part. And what he tries to hide every time is his frustration. All that happened till about 18 months ago. So the conversation that we had in November of 22 was a different conversation. And maybe, Gregg, I'll get you to start what our conversation in November was all about, and talk about what changed.
Sure. Yeah, well, so yeah, what you're saying is absolutely true. I mean, unfortunately, historically, AI has been through many, many hype cycles that ended in disappointment. And so my sort of sad role at the company over the years has included bursting everyone's bubble again and again when somebody came and tried to sell us a exciting new AI tool that turned out not to work. So 18 months ago, I'm sure everybody knows now, or 17, 18, ChatGPT came out and was made sort of publicly available. And so, in keeping with my habit, I, along along with Brandon, immediately started looking at this tool with an assumption that it was going to be another hype cycle. So we basically started this thing assuming that within a matter of a few hours we'd have figured out what's wrong with this one and put it to bed and moved on. Much to our surprise, that didn't happen. In fact, we were immediately, more or less immediately blown away by what the AI could do. And I think it's safe to say that within a fairly short period of time, we completely drunk the Kool-Aid. I mean, we basically came to believe and still believe that this is a revolutionary technology and it is going to change everything. Certainly everything in learning and development, as we'll talk about. So that was a big surprise, and what follows here, we'll try to sort of explain why we believe that this technology has the potential we think it has. So first of all, just to point out, we aren't alone in having drunk the Kool-Aid, and if you've been reading the popular media, you've undoubtedly seen, a range of pundits, tech pundits, talking about this and various levels of excitement. And I like to quote Bill Gates because he normally is on the very unexcited range of the spectrum, so he normally doesn't get too hyped up about things. But he said that in his entire lifetime he's seen two technologies he thought were revolutionary. One was the graphical user interface, and the second was generative AI. So that's a pretty significant thing when somebody who's had a front row seat for every tech advance in the last 50 years says something like that. And I think it's true. I mean, I've been around about the same lifespan, and I would agree with this, but I think I've come to believe that generative AI is a bigger deal than even the graphic user interface or anything we've seen in the way of computer technology so far. To back that up, to back up the opinions, you've probably also seen at least some of this. People have tried very hard to find ways to quantify the AI's ability, and the most obvious one has been to run it through human tests. So, GPT has been the subject of most of these being the sort of first generative AI that really made a splash. So these tests are, unfortunately this is a little US centric, but you might be familiar with these. But these are, the bar exam is the test to be a lawyer in the United States. The GREs are the tests to get into graduate school and so on and so forth. So a lot of these tests show that the AI has a really good reasoning ability, those sort of general purpose tests. But what's more characteristic of what Brandon and I have observed in working with AI is these tests at the bottom, which are essentially tests of knowledge, deep knowledge of sort of esoteric subjects. So biology, art history, U.S. history, and even enology. GPT apparently has passed the exam to become a sommelier, which apparently is quite a hard exam. And that's what we found over and over again, is that the AI not only is able to at least simulate very effectively human reasoning, but it's also able to delve very, very deep into almost any field of knowledge that you can think of and act like an expert. And we try every day literally to stump it, and we really haven't done so yet. I mean, think of any obscure field, and it will turn out the AI has a big store of knowledge in that field. And that's extremely relevant to learning for sort of obvious reasons, but mainly because what slows down the development of learning typically more than anything else is the difficulty of getting input from subject matter experts. So when the AI can play the role of a subject matter expert along with other roles as well, that's a big advance. So the bottom line is, we think, and measurements seem to back up that the AI really can reason sort of like human beings can.
So it looks like what we all thought that ChatGPT was the only game in town, but they have company, looks like.
Yeah, at this point, people may have seen some of these things, but in fact, we believe that GPT-4, which is the most recent version, or GPT-4 Turbo, if you're really looking closely. We think it's been overtaken, for the moment at least, by a generative AI called Claude Opus from Anthropic. But all of the big tech companies have entrants here. And this is going to be a huge fight to see which of these come out on top. And one of the interesting things is that it's all of us need to stay very flexible, because it's very hard to handicap this race. It's very hard to tell who's going to win. But in any case, these entries you see here are called large language models. If you're not totally familiar with this, that means generative AIs that produce text, basically. And most of the work we've done so far is with those large language models. The reason is because they are more mature than the other generative technologies. They're more mature in the sense that they're more readily able to be controlled. So we can control these AIs, and you'll see some of this in a couple minutes here, to do complex tasks and to do them very consistently. If we move on to the next slide, though, you'll see some of the the other kind of generative tools that are coming along that are really interesting too. So first of all, there are the image generation tools like Lalla or Stability that you might have played with to sort of make some cool art. And then I think even more interesting for us in learning, there are tools to create video. What's been called synthetic video, or by some people deepfake video, right? So you might have played with Synthesia, for example. It will make very, very, very real-looking talking head video that's entirely synthetic. And what's interesting here is that there are clearly big watershed developments on the horizon here. So within the next few years, we're going to see video generation tools that work in real time and produce very complex videos. And when that is true, that's going to make an enormous difference in our ability to do simulations. Because if you can imagine a tool that can create video in the moment to reflect whatever situation responds to the learner's commands, and make it look just like reality. It's going to be like in a sense, like the best video game ever. And but we're going to be able to apply that technology to learning. So that's
we have some amazing technology at our fingerprints. How have we
progressed harnessing this technology into, of course, what we do, our trade, learning and development?
Yeah, well, so just to give a quick progress report, this is sort of just qualitatively what our experience has been so far. So first and foremost, playing with this stuff for 17 months, we think the technology lives up to the hype, especially again text generation. We're also noting that the tech companies are really all in here. They're investing, incredible amounts, hundreds of billions of dollars at this point, and they're essentially betting the farm on the success of this. As I just said, the massive breakthroughs that we can see in the horizon, we know they're coming. We know there's going to be real-time generation of video, synthetic video, for example. Our clients, our big multinational companies we work for in learning, are all preparing for a tech revolution. They all assume this is coming. It's going to change a lot of things. The learning and development departments we work with expect massive change, and as you've seen yourselves, everybody's talking about it. So it's everything looks very positive. There are a couple of caveats. One is that real instances of deployment at scale in learning are so far are few. A lot of people are experimenting. There's not that much out there that's really ready for prime time yet. Partly that's because we're hearing from L&D groups that corporate IT groups tend to be a bottleneck. To be fair, especially if you're from a corporate IT group, that's kind of their job, to sort of try to keep everybody safe, but that's definitely slowing down the ability to use these tools. L&D is also a kind of low priority for, within some companies for, the first crack at using generative AI for really interesting stuff. We noticed that L&D leaders are definitely looking for guidance. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty about what to do. We also noticed a lot of people are having a little bit of trouble sort of wrapping their imagination around everything AI can do. And, we see a lot of people who are fixated on health bots, which are essentially the most obvious use of AI. If you experience ChatGPT, it's easy to imagine that that's the only way we're going to use it. Is you're going to have a prompt and you're going to ask it questions or ask it to do little tasks for you, and that's it. In fact, it's going to do a lot more than that. But there's a little lag in people's imaginations catching up with the reality of what it can do. And finally, we noticed that most L&D professionals believe big change is coming at this point. Not everybody's happy about it. So, for example, we were in London a few months back with some very senior CLOs, and they were, over drinks after the sessions, several of them were joking that their main hope was to retire before they had to deal with the consequences of AI for learning. So,
and I know, what a change. What a change. I mean, just a few weeks ago, we had Confluence in the United States, and I am sure that most of those guys were not going to wait till their retirement to hope that AI will make a difference.
Yes. Yeah, I am too. It's just moving too fast. So, in fact, as the folks at Bain and Company said a little while back, you're out of time to wait and see on AI. It's here, it's in your face, it's, things are going to change with or without you. So, yeah, I think everybody is sort of starting to realize it's time to have strategy here. And it's time to decide what you're going to do and start placing your bets and start making investments. To sort of help think through that, we've come up with a maturity model, as the sort of big consulting companies would say. That is, an attempt to make some sense out of how AI, the different ways AI is going to impact learning, and this sort of natural evolution as it becomes more, as we're exploiting more and more of it. So our maturity model is very simple. I mean, it has 4 basic levels. The lowest level is accelerate. This is what you were talking about, Sapnesh. The first thing most people see about the AI is, wow, it's fast. It just makes content much faster than human beings make content, and so it's promising enormous speed up. Right out of the box, so to speak. And so, a number of people are having trouble, as you were saying, seeing past that, but we see that as the lowest level of utilization. The next one we call elevate. Elevate is basically pointing out that this sort of quantitative change of being able to do things faster is almost automatically going to lead to qualitative change in how good the training we build is. Because, again, I think you were alluding to this, that, we make a lot of compromises in training, based on money, based on time, based on subject matter expert availability. AI, can overcome all 3 of those obstacles. And because of that, we're going to start very, very soon, essentially now, being able to make much more of what we know is good training, much less of what we understand is bad training.
Now, I would say, on the point, Greg, that you made about the inability to provide good training, I remember talking to the CHRO of a really large private bank just about a year and a half or 2 years ago. And the guy said that, look, today we are just not able to train our relationship managers the way we should. So I said, what do you do? What do you do with your relationship managers? So the guy said that, we do what the Russian army does when they want to clear a minefield. We just let them walk over it, and whoever is left lives to fight the next day. And so what a lot of banks, and these guys are the leaders in private banking, and I'm sure others do something similar. They hire folks they get those folks to know a little bit about banking in about a week or so, and then let them loose on their customers. Some of you must have interacted with them. God help you if you did. But that's what happens. And then they end up learning on the job. But that is the most expensive way of training anyone. Right? You let them, and what ends up happening is 75% of the conversations they have are poor customer service. And the bank suffers because of that. But they're helpless and they can't do anything about it. And so they end up having 40% attrition in their front lines. Now, this is just a CHRO who was being candid with me. I'm sure there are others who are really proud of what they are doing, but they're still suffering. And maybe we can change that.
Yeah, well, I mean, with AI, we can simulate the mind game, basically. So, at least, you're neither necessarily losing your employees nor your customers when this learning curve is taking place. So, I think we'll be able to fix that almost immediately. But then, the next level of our, maturity models where things get really exciting, and we call that transcend to kind of reflect that. And this is where we use AI interactively to create training experiences. In doing that, we can create experiences that were not possible before. I mean, we can literally do things that could never have been done. We can do open-ended simulations. We can put people in all kinds of very hyper-realistic situations, have them learn by experience, have them get coached all the way by the AI, and we'll see some of that in just a couple of minutes. But this is where we're really going to see the technology allow us to break away from everything we've done in the past. We're going to see entirely new kinds of learning happening, and it's going to be vastly more effective than anything we've done in the past. And then the last level we call unify, and what we mean by that is that as we develop all these different ways to use interactive AI to create fantastic learning experiences of all kinds, it's going to be possible to have a single NI master all of those different techniques. So it's going to have all these terrific different tactics for helping people learn at its disposal. It's going to be able to make intelligent decisions about which to use when. And it's going to be able to focus on a single individual. So you'll have an AI as your tutor. It will have all of these great techniques at its disposal, and it will spend its time studying you and finding out what works for you, how to get you motivated, how to create the very best possible learning path for you for whatever it is you're trying to do. So we think AI is actually going to, in not too long, not too many years, become the medium by which training is delivered. You won't get trained by starting up an e-learning or going into a classroom. You'll get trained by interacting with your personal AI tutor, which is almost like if you were an incredibly rich professional athlete, you might have a coach that essentially takes care of all your training needs and kind of looks after you all the time. That's effectively what an AI tutor is. We'll come back to that toward the end. But that's that's how we make sense out of the how we think AI is going to sort of unfold in the learning business.
This seems like an amazing vision. Just help us understand this vision with a few examples.
Sure. Yeah, well. So first of all, I mean, one thing I want to share really quickly is that we've talked to a lot of people in L&D about this technology, and one of the first reactions we get all the time is, boy, the first thing this makes me think is my job description. Because, you have this incredible technology coming along, it makes content much faster than I can, and maybe content is going to become this incredibly inexpensive commodity, and L&D is going to cease to be a viable occupation for most people. So, one thing I want to, I try to stress when we talk about this is that does not tend to be what happens when big technological change comes along. So we've looked historically at, what's happened with tech revolutions in the past, and one in particular we looked at was, what happened with the automobile, right? 1908, the Model T Ford came out, arguably the first kind of mass affordable automobile. And right after that, there were a series of different, huge technological revolutions affecting our ability to make cars. Just to pick one of them, electronics essentially was not invented until after the first car was built. And it's really important to understand, and it's more obvious in retrospect than it is looking ahead, but it's really important to understand that, what happened as a result of all these waves of tech revolutions is not that we kept making Model Ts, and made them cheaper and cheaper so that, they cost virtually nothing now. Instead we used all that tech power to make new kinds of cars. And the cars we were able to make, and are able to make now, would literally look like science fiction if we could transport them back to 1908. So, there's instead of looking at this as, something that's going to take people's jobs away, I hope we're all looking at this as an enormous opportunity. I mean, it's going to change jobs. How we work on learning is going to be very different in the future than it was in the past.
That's what I want to drive.
We all have a really exciting job to do with learning, which is to figure out how to build the learning equivalent of this car, right? That is, what can we do with all this amazingly powerful technology that's at our disposal now? So, it's sort of fun to watch that. All right, so that's a sort of quick summary of, what we think after playing with this technology for, again, the last 17 months or so. So with that, I'll hand over to Brandon, and let's show you some of the things we actually did.
Yeah, Brandon is going to get us inside that car and hopefully let us drive it.
Yes. Oh yeah.
You get to drive a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of walk you through some of the experiments that Gregg and I have been running over the past year and a half or so. And we're going to structure those kind of going up the pyramid, so you get a sense of what things look like from accelerate through transcend, and some of the conclusions we think we can kind of draw from these experiments. It's a small set of the hundreds that we've run over the past 18 months. To do this, we've set up an AI factory. It's a technical infrastructure on the back end that lets us really quickly and securely connect to different language models, rapidly prototype applications, and deploy them. So it's kind of a really good test ground that we have, and also a deployment environment for AI. And it lets us do all of this again in a way that is respectful of IP, that comes with assurances around data privacy, kind of fun stuff that everyone's worried about around AI. So I'll start at the bottom of the pyramid here on accelerated, and I'll start with the conclusions first here. After we've done probably 50 or 60 experiments in this area, we can conclude that the models are in fact super fast at writing basic content, that they are expert level at nearly everything, as Gregg said. And we have tried to stump it, and that's part of our mission every morning when we get up, is to figure out how we can stump the AI, and we haven't yet. It writes really clean copy, so we don't see usage errors, we don't see typos, we don't see grammatical errors, we don't see tonal shifts, the things that we typically devote a lot of QA to, we don't see. And it's just strong writing overall. So at the end of kind of the accelerated, you take all the accelerated experiments you've done and you bundle them up. We could say that basically the AI can perform like a pretty top-notch instructional designer when it comes to writing. So the very first experiment we did here is the one I'm going to show, because it's the one that kind of, I think, blew our minds and set us on this path. Gregg and I got up at 8 o'clock one morning. It was a Thursday. Back in November or December of 2022. And we sat down with ChatGPT and we asked it to write a 60-minute course for us on battery technology that would be appropriate for managers at large multinational companies. We asked the AI to give us a storyboard to make sure that it conforms to a particular development tool, particular RISE, that it gave us all the bits and bobs of content we need, and that it formatted them such that we could actually put it into a course easily. And within 8 hours, we had a full script. It turned out to not be a 60-minute course, but a 90-minute course. So, if you think about, why people get really stuck on the productivity side of this, you think about how long 60 to 90 minutes of content takes you to write nowadays. I guess in the old days now is what it is. But, being able to write an entire course end to end in 8 hours is pretty amazing. And the script was clean enough that it went into the interface exactly as you see it now overnight while we slept. So about another 4 hours later, we had the course that I'm going to show you here.
Welcome to Module 1 of our training on batteries and their usage in alternative energy.
And this is a little Synthesia kind of side experiment we did. We asked the AI to go ahead and give us some video scripts while it was at it. And so in that 4 hours of building the course, we also, our creative guy, actually put together the video as well. All this content that you see on screen, along with the template selection, descriptions of the images, all the different kinds of layouts that it used and so forth, interactives that it chose, all of this came directly from the AI, first shot in 8 hours. It gave us, in addition to the video scripts, it gave us summative assessments for each of the modules. So this, we went back and looked, and these do in fact comprehensively test across the entire module that we were covering. And I'll skip forward a little bit here. It got down to some technical depth, particularly chemical reactions. And one of the interesting little side notes here is that, Gregg thought it needed to use a slightly more modern notation format and told it so. And it rewrote that happily for us with the proper notation. And then later on, which you'll see in just a second here, it wrote more chemical reactions and it remembered that input. So that's another thing that we were really shocked by, is that when we gave feedback, the feedback was not only applied in place, but it was applied across the entire script. And I won't spend a lot longer on this one, but I mean, just to kind of scroll through it quickly to show you, I mean, all the content's here. We've had this one and lots of other tests we've done since, gone over with a fine-tooth comb by experts. And, with the proper prompting strategy, we haven't seen the hallucinations that were talked about an awful lot at the beginning of AI. We found that, there are a couple of ways you can badly prompt an AI that triggers that kind of result. But when you're using kind of proper prompting strategies, you just don't see it. So this was kind of that was the experiment that made us really think that there might be something here. And so we immediately went on to think about, what is it, kind of at the next level of the pyramid at the elevate phase that we could do that would surely stump the AI. And that, again, this was kind of our mission for at least the first 6 months of it. We just thought, we're going to find the end of this thing. There's got to be some level of hype here that we're just not seeing. So we went in and we thought about, when it comes to the kind of best training we do right now, that's going to be learned by doing sorts of scenarios, stuff that, as Gregg said, sort of simulates the minefield. Gives people hands-on practice in a safe environment, generally scenario-based learning or some kind of static simulation that you run people through. There are two things about that turn out to be really, really hard. And drive up both the costs and also the timelines of these things. And the first is the subject matter expert connection, right? You have a smart ID, an instructional designer. They know how the learning needs to work. You have a really smart expert in the domain. They have a day job. And they get frustrated trying to teach the ID, and the ID has a hard time getting the subject matter expert to kind of understand what they're trying to do. And that causes a lot of friction, and it's really around that kind of scenario generation where that friction comes in. I mean, really, it is a productivity issue, right? You want the extra productivity you're going to get from really great training, but you also have the subject matter expert who you want to take out the field for a week or however long it's going to take to get the course kind of pinned down. The other side of this is really hard is creativity. You know, if you write this learn by doing kind of scenario, and it just doesn't sound like real life. It doesn't have the real drama. It doesn't have the right lingo and so forth. You know, that's going to totally kill it, and people are going to tune out. So you end up spending a lot more time on writing. You know, a lot higher end writers to do it. And it turns out AI sort of fixes both of these problems for us. I'll show you one quick example on the front end of that, the subject matter expert interaction. So it turns out AI can generate scenarios for you incredibly rapidly. I mean, our previous gold standard for how quickly to get a scenario generated, you know, Greg and I did an oil well drilling simulation for one of our big oil and gas clients. We spent an entire week in The Hague with the two biggest experts in the world, basically, on how you drill oil wells. And we walked out after that week of intensive workshopping with 10 scenarios. And I mean, we were all high-fiving ourselves, you know, each other on the way out the door. We thought this was just really great productivity. So here, I've asked a model to create 20 key scenarios for us that would apply to employees at a global systems integrator.
Now, this is something that many of you might be able to relate to. And I'm sure there are L&D folks from GSIs here. And let's see if we got some of those scenarios right.
So right out of the gate, it generates it generates 20, it could generate 50, it could generate 100 bytes for 100 bytes for 20. Advanced cloud architecture design, cybersecurity, threat analysis, mitigation, containerization, Kubernetes, orchestration.
Do these things make sense? Do these things make sense? Yes, no, maybe, not really. Yes? Show of hands? At least two people think that it seems to make sense. All right.
Cover some slack, Sapnesh, it's early. Number 15 here. So I mean, just to show you kind of the depth here. Data privacy and regulatory compliance, ensuring data privacy compliance with international regulations such as GDPR, CCPA, and India's personal data protection bill and software systems. I said, take number 15 and give me 20 more scenarios that are detailed variants of that. And so the next thing it comes back with here is an even more detailed list. And if you're doing the math in the room there, you know, we do this for that first set, we've got 400 scenarios defined, and this took about 15 seconds total.
Now, I'm reasonably sure you train many guys on this, but do you get to this detail easily? Yes? No? No? Yes? No? Okay. Everybody feels that they can't get this too. All right.
Well, it doesn't stop here. So you know, it's got really specific things that you can check this, they check, you can check out. So I went into number 9 here, which is a little bit of my test, but cross-border data transfer compliance, navigating the complexities of cross-border data transfers, focusing on mechanisms like standard contractual clauses and binding corporate rules for GDPR compliance. I said, give me 20 of those. And it happily does it, and it's now getting into extreme detail. So the first one here, implementing SCCs for EU, US data transfers, developing a protocol to implement standard contractual clauses for transferring customer data from EU to US, ensuring compliance with the latest EU data protection requirements post-privacy shield invalidation. So we're getting a lot of technical detail there.
The interesting thing is that every scenario starts with a verb. Unfortunately, a lot of our training doesn't start with a verb, but that's another story.
Yeah, it really gets scenarios, and it really gets them. So, you know, I took number 1 here, and I said, give me all of the details that I would need to create a scenario-based course and have a really robust initial discussion with subject matter expert around it. And it generated this, and again, it's a bit of an eye test, but if you look at this, it has kind of a teaser narrative that I could go in my email with subject matter expert. The starting back pattern has a lot of details. Multinational corporation with significant data flows from EU to the US, spanning thousands of EU citizens' data for processing and analysis in the US. It includes sensitive personal information, which include health records, financial data, personal identification. It gets down to the regulatory change itself. The CJEU's SCREMS 2 ruling invalidates the privacy shield, mandating immediate compliance adjustment. Tells me what the timeline is.
Now, if I could do this, this is good training. This is good training. This is a great scenario. I mean, do you guys think this, if we could put this scenario in front of our associates, would this be considered as a good question or a good scenario? Yes? No? Yes? You got a yes, Brandon?
All right. Well, when you think about the fact that, you know, we, in a matter of maybe an hour sitting down with this, you have 8,000 scenarios detailed out to this level. You know, the burden that you used to have, which was, you know, how the heck do I even get to the scenario? You know, you have this really wonderful other problem now, which is like, how do I decide which one of these to go through first? Which is just a completely different set of problems, and I love that we're there. The second thing that you know that the AI can help with on this front is that it can write really dramatic content. And you know what we found is that basically if we can articulate a style and we can give some reference from a movie, a television show, a book that's popular or something, you know, the AIs can write in that style right out of the gate, and they can write dramatically in true tone. So just as a quick example, I won't spend time on this. We work with a client, Network Rail. They do all the management of the rail systems across the UK. And they wanted to do a course on the effects of climate change on the rail systems. And so, you know, we asked for a script to be written in the tone and style of An Inconvenient Truth, which is, you know, the Al Gore kind of documentary from the early aughts, just because it had a really noticeable tone that kind of fit the beat here. And if you look at it, I mean, the script is perfectly in tone and style. And what we found across the board is that you get that almost pitch perfect tone and style across almost any tone and style you could possibly ask for. And you do that, you know, I mean, the AI can effectively just do that with ease. So you get a script like this written in, you know, minutes, as opposed to weeks and weeks and weeks, which is what you would expect from a writer. So you put those two things together, and you can kind of do the best sorts of training we do today, a lot more quickly and with a lot more kind of stress between the subject matter expert and the learning function than you had before. And that gets us to where things get really exciting. So I'm gonna in this section I'm going to show you a couple of examples that build up to the really kind of transcend level things that we've been working on. The things where the AI is directly interacting with the learner to facilitate the learning experience. These are open-ended kind of simulations that we couldn't do before. I mean, they just weren't possible at all. And then we'll show you some of them in the room where you'll get to have a little bit of input into how the sessions go. So starting with the conclusions first here again. Excuse me. The first thing is we have found that these systems are massively augmentable, and that was important. So clients have their own rules, they have their own internal documents, they have all kinds of things they want to make sure are referenced very accurately. You know, it turns out that with this large language model technology, there's a known, safe, secure way to inject little bits of proprietary content into your request in the large language model and have them incorporated into the answer safely. These large language models are excellent role players, and you'll see an example in the room of this, a live example of AI playing a character role, including a coach in the situation, which is pretty cool. And they're excellent simulators, so effectively anything we tried to have the large language model simulate for us, from we partnered with the Big Four, to do a big audit simulation, whether it's actually conduct an audit on a fictional company, oil and gas, kinds of simulations, tech simulations where you're simulating code and so forth. It can simulate effectively anything. So, the large language models open up options to have organic, open-ended simulations that are incredibly complex, but bound to your own rules, to your own rubrics, and so forth.
So this is where it gets really interesting, right, Brandon? So, like we promised, this session is not just talk. We are actually going to do a few things. And I talked a little bit earlier about my conversation with the CHRO of a large bank. And when he said that, we just can't find a way of training our relationship managers because, the best way of training is put them in a real life situation. The only thing we can do today is to put them in a role play. And how do people do role plays today? You have a class like this, and you'll say, Johnny, you are the customer. Joe or Sharon, you are the seller. Go at each other. Now that is a completely made up scenario. When these two guys are hopefully going against each other, everybody else is laughing at them. And so the CHRO said, that's just waste of time. I'm not going to do that. And what the guy ended up doing was letting them go and meet with customers and try to use customers to teach them how to be relationship managers. So we took that as a customer service playbook and we built, using all the power of AI, to create a customer service playbook. And on that playbook, you can drive scenarios that could be close to relationship management in a bank. It could be insurance. It could be customer service for a large automotive company. So it could be across many of those situations. Another one that we're going to start to show and tell with is cybersecurity. You saw the different cybersecurity scenarios that you could train a person on. And then Brandon said that, how do I pick which one to run? Now, to pick which one to run, you ought to know who the student is. Who are you assessing? And you ought to know what their skill level is so that you can figure out, and what their field of work is. Are they an incident responder? Or are they going to play defense? Are they going to secure you? Or are they going to respond to a threat? So it was not humanly possible for us to bring a cogent training strategy in cyber. So what do most people do? Teach them everything that there is to teach. Hopefully something will stick. Now so we invited Shivaji, our Chief Technology Officer at RPS, to dry run this scenario and see if it actually works. And Shivaji has been working on this for the last several weeks. And at least he told me today morning that it looks like it might work. And we have a few cybersecurity experts in the room. We'll co-opt them, hopefully. Yeah? We're going to do that? All right. All yours, Shivaji. If we can switch to that laptop on the screen.
If we switch that off, passwords will be visible. As a CTO, I'm not supposed to show you the screen.
Now, whenever I've come on stage, I've been told, and Gregg told me this 2 weeks ago, you can do whatever the heck you want, but do not do a live demo. But I said our conference is all about trying things out, doing things. And we can't run a recording. So we have a live demo. If it hangs, that's what technology does. It hangs every once in a while, right? I'm sure nothing like that has ever happened to you. But if it works, it could be something that you've never seen.
Well, thanks, Sapnesh, and good morning. I hope I'm not going to bore you with a lot of talks. We'll get right into this simulation. Yeah. Cybersecurity is a pretty interesting field. I'm sure all of us are hearing that cybersecurity incidents are increasing. Just to give you a parlance, between 2022 and 2023, the number of cyber attacks in India is increased by 15%. Now that's just a number, 15%. What does it mean? I picked up a couple of data. Almost every company has 2,138 cyber attack attempts every week in India. That's the number we are talking, right? We are a little short of Taiwan. Taiwan is at number 1 position. Now they get hit by 3,050 attacks every week. Now, if that's the rate of attack, imagine how many people we do need to do incident response, to do protection, to innovate and do more things. And based on the topic, there's an interesting thing here. We are talking about human talent, right? In the cyber world, human talent always stands out. Technology has always augmented that talent. Every time we have built something to defend our system, there'll be one guy who will figure out how to break it. And then we start working on the new things again, right? So we thought, if that's the case, and I was talking to another friend of mine who is in the audience, a cybersecurity expert, especially on the forensic side. When they hire people, the rejection ratios are very high. Out of 120 people they interview, one gets selected, right? So that also means that the scale at which we need to do these assessments is pretty large. Also, it needs a human intervention. You can't assess a cybersecurity professional today purely with MCQs. You need to have a face-to-face discussion to understand their attitude, to understand their knowledge, right? So we thought, if we use AI to augment that, if AI can build those situational questions, and if we can take a narrative or an answer from a student to really understand their attitude, that would be a great way to assess at scale, right? So we created this playbook. Now, this playbook is around cybersecurity, but what we get to understand, and I'm doing a little, probably telling it more before showing the simulation as such, that this playground can be adopted for literally any tech scenario. While we are doing cybersecurity here, we could have probably done this on DevSecOps or probably DevOps, right? Any other field. I was also thinking, we do have some cybersecurity experts here. Binu, would it be great if you could come here, help me out, solve this? You are an expert in this field, right? So just inviting Binu here.
So we're going to have AI try to interview an expert. Is that the deal?
So Mr. Binu is Associate Director, EY, Cybersecurity Forensic Response. I think he deals with hiring these people, really checking their attitude, and I don't think you run tools to really evaluate these people. Would you need a mic?
Yeah, here. So when I try to hire people, I don't look at their expertise in tools.
Yeah.
The reason is anybody can learn those. But what we need is the right mindset, the critical thinking, the the persons who wear this, always wear the defensive hat, or always curious to know why, how, those kind of things. So if we get the right attitude people, we can train them on tools. That's much better than somebody in the tool who's expert in a tool, but doesn't have that mindset. They will never be able to investigate something.
Absolutely. I think what I'm going to do is, let me start the simulation here. We will set the context in terms of which industry we are trying to hire these people for. While they are cyber guys, industry to industry, certain practices differ, right? Or segment to segment, certain practices differ. So we will select an industry.
Okay.
And then probably the help I need from you is that the question which is coming up there and the response which we give for that, do you think that's relevant when you are hiring such a candidate.
Okay,
Yeah?
sure,
Yeah,
sure. Let's try
absolutely.
it.
Perfect.
You can look down there as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
I hope the screen is visible, right? The fonts are fine? Or is it too small? Too small, okay. Let me see if I can increase it. Yeah? Okay. Anyway, I'll talk about what we do there, right? So, what we're trying to do is we're trying to assess a cybersecurity skill level of a candidate. What we will ask the candidate what industry they work in, what cybersecurity domain they work in, and then based on that, we are going to ask certain questions which are practical knowledge based. Right? These are scenarios. And these scenarios are created on the fly. There is no question bank from which these questions are being pulled out. Based on the inputs we give, is going to create those questions on the fly. And what that also means that if I had 120 candidates, I would have given them 120 different scenarios, right? Now that's another important thing which is probably not possible if we were doing one-on-one interviews with real humans interfacing with them, right? So let's start it. Like I said, it's going to ask me what industry do you practice cybersecurity in? I know healthcare used to be the biggest, but just for information, in India, retail and wholesale, they are being impacted the maximum today. There's been 22% increase in cyber attacks in between 2022 and 2023, right? But what would you suggest?
let's go with retail.
Retail?
Yep.
Okay.
More money involved in online transactions, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm saying retail industry. Now, the second question is cybersecurity has multiple domains, like defense is different, forensic is different, response is different, data privacy is different. So, what domain of cybersecurity are you responsible for, right? And what do you suggest?
SOC,
SOC. Interesting. So that's gonna cover,
Security Operations Center.
yeah.
Okay.
It'll cover up multiple domains in it. So interesting. The questions are gonna be from a very wide domain now, right? The third question is it'll ask the participant to rate themselves. It's a self-assessment. 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest, right? What's your bet?
6.
6? Slightly above 5. Yeah.
He wants to be called average.
I know. I always try from 5 and it will take me down to 1. Many times it took me to 10. Right? Now, so it kind of took those 3 parameters, and based on that, what it will do is it will create a challenge. It will create a scenario, and around that scenario, it will throw a challenge to you. Right? Also notice that the challenge level below, the current level, is currently at 6. The complexity level is 6. Let's look at the question. So the scenario is that imagine that you are a SOC analyst for a large international retail company. Your company's e-commerce platform has been experiencing intermittent outages, and the development team has traced it to suspicious network traffic that appear to be DDoS, right? Denial of service. The attack is impacting your company's sales and ability to serve customer, which is causing your shareholder to get nervous. Interesting. So it's going to look at multifaceted problem statement. It is not just looking at how are you going to prevent it, protect it. It is also looking at how are you going to communicate to the stakeholder, right? So your challenge is, since you are responsible for managing the incident, detail out your immediate next step. You are required to identify the type of DOS attack being carried out, the potential source of the attack, and discuss the mitigation strategy. Interesting. Now, I will answer it because I am the candidate. You are my interviewer. You have to tell me first whether this is a relevant question.
Yeah, it definitely is a relevant question. And DDoS attacks, that's distributed denial of service, is a very common phenomena to disrupt a network.
Fantastic.
So, would you guys ask such a question in an interview?
Yes, we do.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So I'm the candidate, so I'm going to answer, and then the system will probably give me some more recommendations here, and probably Vinu will decide whether I can be hired or not. Right?
Let's hope for the best. My hope is that he doesn't hire you.
Interestingly, I'm going to use certain keywords and say, here, since yes, so we're going to monitor the IP traffic to validate attack pattern or attack incident, notify ISP to activate packet scrubbing, isolate systems being attacked with IP filters, notify management of. Does that sound okay?
Yep.
Let me see.
I could ask that of my interview.
Let's see what the system, or how does this AI assess me on that. Okay, nice job. The system does two things. One, it tells me what I have responded to is correct or not. It also gives suggestions around it. So what it says is that communicating with management in mind, which is a vital during such incidents. Considering your response, it seems like your current skill level in cybersecurity matches your self-assessment at level 6, right? So far, so good. First question I have cleared, Vijay. Probably second one I'll fail, right? Now, it goes on building that question again. So at least 2 questions around it will ask. And if I remain at level 6, it closes my assessment saying, you rated yourself 6, I am rating you 6. Plus, it also gives me what can I do to improve my skills, right? In either case, if I fail, that means if the current level goes from 6 to 5, it's going to tell me what to do next. Okay. Second question is, so it builds on the previous situation. It says, continuing from previous scenario, your team managed to bring the DDoS attack under control, right? But during the incident review, you discovered a large amount of data was exfiltrated during the attack. This is generally what happens in majority of the attack. And yesterday also we were talking about it. The biggest challenge in cybersecurity today is that you don't know when somebody came in. By the time you realize somebody is in the system, it's almost 6 months, right? So one, it's throwing a APT situation. There is a data exfiltration. We don't know how much of it is pulled out. All signposts towards an advanced, persistent threat leveraging the attack as a distraction. Your company's reputation is at stake, as well as compliance with data protection regulation. So GDPR is an important piece here. As the security officer in charge, how do you plan to identify more about the attacker, understand the extent of the breach, and prevent such incidents from happening in the future? Interestingly, this also is going towards forensics, right?
Yes, yes.
Right?
This is more towards incident investigation and forensics.
As a techie, I would say I'll use MITRE ATT&CK. First, I have to isolate the systems. So we would say, as a first step, isolate and disconnect the systems, image data, use MITRE ATT&CK technique to investigate. I'm hoping it will fail me here.
Would you have failed him with that response?
It's a very generic answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
So MITRE attack really doesn't, it is not something for investigation.
For investigation. So it pushes me down to 5.5. I want to fail, but not fail with a very big number.
You
Right?
just go back up and see what it's saying.
So it clearly says that your method of addressing the situation seems to be on the right track, but it may not be the right one. It needs certain improvement. Right?
You didn't cover the extent of reporting and future preventive measures.
Correct. Because the question.
All right.
which was
Thank
asked,
God.
yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. Right. So there's a following question, but this time I'm at 5.5. It dropped me further. The question is, following the breach, your organization has decided to enhance its security framework. Now, I don't know the answer of this. Right?
Maybe Binu does.
What do you think, Binu? What should we write? It's asking my interviewer to answer for me. So interestingly, it says you have a wealth of log data from various sources. Could you detail a plan to approach this task? Discuss how you would decide on the most critical data to monitor, how you would create a baseline of normal behavior for anomaly detection. Doesn't it look like we can set up a Splunk infrastructure with observability?
Yeah, SIEM basically.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it can be Splunk
yeah,
or anything
yeah.
else. Probably we have to first identify what are the critical assets
Correct,
of the organization,
correct.
and based on that, prioritize them for logging and
Yeah.
those monitoring.
Also, probably identify the signatures because we also had a pattern earlier.
Yep.
So-
Signature identification would come later because you first have to run this
Run
for
that,
some time
correct.
to even understand the normal pattern.
Correct.
So what is normal and what is abnormal has to be identified. So you need to run this system for some time.
Okay. I think considering the time also, what we'll do is we'll try and see how does it rate us and at what point it gives me a conclusive answer as to what is my current skill level.
Oh, even my skill level is at 5.5 now. What is missing? Specify how would you create alerts on unusual behavior.
So what it did
Anomaly
is it did say that we have given a solid approach towards setting up a robust monitoring system, but it is also asking us to look at alert definitions. So we did a baseline.
Yeah.
I think another line we could have added saying that based on that we'll create a
So
signature and alert
Yes,
system.
basically, the thing we said, we have to monitor, run it for some time to see what is usual, unusual, and based on that, we develop
Correct.
signatures later.
But
So
do you
that
think
could-
these questions are very relevant? And if you have to use these questions to probably, interview those 120, 130 candidates in a week, does it make
This
sense?
would filter out people like anything. This will solve my problem drastically. Because
Interesting.
right now, what happens is most of the interviews is people put all kind of things in their CV. They say, I know, forensic investigators, they might have used the tool once in a while, they don't know much, but they will put it there. So once you're looking at the CV, you really don't understand who is good and who is not. So the only way to do is interview them. But interviewing so many people becomes a very tedious task. And, finally you get one person out of 120 interviews, it's a waste of time. A lot of
And many times, it's not just interviewing. You might have a team of cyber associates, and you have a project, like a GSI might get a project, and now you have to assemble a team,
And time bound. So
and it's time bound, and you work within constraints. But something like this could not just help you shortlist who you want to put in the team, but also will give you an opportunity to train them on where they are deficient.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Wow, so you went down. Now you are totally failed.
Yeah, now I'm failing, but the system will keep asking you questions, to really understand what's the right position there. And Adla, correct me wrong, you've been developing this, that now if I've come to 5, will it be asking me question again till I go back to 6? I really have to work hard to get back to 6.
Now you can watch Shivaji struggle, or you can take time out during your day and try it for yourself. Let's see if you do, how you do on this one. But again, I would encourage you guys to connect with Shivaji and see how this could apply to different scenarios that you face. Thanks. Thanks, Binu.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much
Shivaji.
for this. Really appreciate your help. Binu, you had a question.
Sure.
So just a couple of quick questions, Shivaji.
Yeah.
Was this rehearsed at all with Vinu?
All this particular part with Binu,
Yes.
I just told Binu today morning that I'll pull you here.
Okay, so this was all on the fly.
On the fly.
The questions were coming on the fly. Vinu did not know about the questions.
I didn't see the session.
In fact,
Okay.
I did come up here to rehearse whether my screen is working or not. The questions are new every time.
Okay. Now the real question. If this is where, and this is an interview scenario,
Correct.
I can see a huge potential of
Correct.
deploying this
Correct.
in our situations where our customers
I was
interview
also
each and
thinking the
every.
same thing.
Yeah. What happens to the assessment platforms that are prevalent today, the Hacker Ranks, the Mercer Metals, the Codilities of the world? Is there a potential of replacing those with something like this, or are they on this track as well? Would you know what's the
Some
future?
of them, yeah. Correct. Yeah. And I could also answer with a specific situation.
See, most assessment platforms use question banks.
That's right,
Even the
yeah.
most rigorous question platforms, the ones that do high stakes assessments, they use question banks. And you have to constantly refresh question banks because they get exposed. And the unfortunate part behind a question bank is that it is static. You create it once, it costs a lot of money to create, and then it stays like that for the next 3 years. And then you refresh it again. This is not a question bank. This is a conversation. And to have a real conversation, it's really, really expensive. If this conversation went on for 30 minutes, now I don't know about Binu, but somebody like Binu must be billing at $400 an hour. So we spent $200 for this conversation, multiplied by 120 for one person. That's what you can replace. So the opportunity is not just to replace your assessment tools. It's to reimagine the process that we use to shortlist a team that we are going to put in front of a customer. That's the opportunity.
Just to add to it, Vibhuti, I think we both closely work on certain projects.
Yep.
An important piece there is show and tell, right? We want every learner to go through a show and tell behavior because that's how they are going to be interviewed by the projects or the practices or the customers as such. When we try and do this MCQ questions or even coding based questions, a lot of it is getting copied from GPTs itself. You put through a coding question, they'll put it in chat GPT, get the answer and paste it back here.
Okay, I'll put you on a spot, Shivaji.
Yeah.
We are bringing this to what we are working on right now.
Yes.
Are we?
Yes. In fact, I'm already talking to Adla in trying to do the same thing. with a little twist that the answer which they are submitting will go back, check it with Gemini and ChatGPT to see if they copied it from there.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we're going to take care of that situation
the
as well.
NGA program that we are working with you on is going to have this.
Would be a little difficult. We will try pilot, but I'm definitely looking.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, now, thanks, Binu. Thanks, Shivaji. We're going to now set it up for the relationship manager scenario. Do we have anyone from banking in the room? Banking, insurance?
I had one question.
Sure. While we are setting it up.
Hello. Yeah. So that question was primarily on this demonstration that was shown now. So I'm really sorry I missed one part. What was the source of this information? I know it's not some static question bank was not there, but what was the source?
This was a real-time interaction with a generative AI.
But so it means. Got it. Okay. Okay.
Ruchi?
Understood. Got it. So one question here, because I have also recently worked in, not directly, but indirectly, I've seen working on LLM, because this is getting inputs from different sources of data. And the authenticity of those sources
Correct.
is not
Absolutely.
there. It means we are not clear on that.
Correct.
So, and the keywords play a very important role here in this context.
Yes.
Even if there is a good candidate who has right expertise,
Correct.
but because of wrong inputs given by candidates,
Correct.
may lead to a rejection of a candidate.
Possible. So, for example, and you must have seen my last answer that I carefully placed seam in it. The answers left and right side of it had no relevance to it. Right. So that can happen. And that's the whole idea, that the question and answer session builds on a context. And that's how we also interview people, right?
Right.
Many times when we are interviewing, we are trying to look at those keywords, we are trying to look at the context, and then understand whether this person really knows the subject or not. So the questions will not stop. It continued asking me more and more questions.
So I think there are a bunch of great questions.
Yeah. And
we'll connect with you over lunch.
Sure.
Correct.
And anyone else who wants to chat about it, welcome to connect over lunch.
Yeah.
At this time, we'll switch
thank
to Ruchi and Gaurav, who are going to take us through a relationship management scenario. Again, this is a specific case for a bank, but you could generalize it to a number of customer service situations. We realized that Gaurav in his past life was a relationship manager. Unlike Shivaji, who in his current life is a CTO, and we'll see if we can use Gaurav to test drive this scenario.
Manager. I still have managed
Still a relationship manager, all right, but not for a bank.
Not for a bank.
All
I
right,
actually manage a relationship for the
bank.
not the clients. Maybe.
All right, so we are going to show you a very unique playbook which has been configured for relationship and wealth managers. And I see that Manish has walked in just in time for this. So these relationship managers or RMs, they provide financial advice to customers. We did some discovery with various banks. We asked supervisors of many relationship managers, what are some of those top skills where you would like to get your RMs improve the maximum? And what came out clearly and very strongly is handling unexpected complex customer conversations. So over here, we are going to simulate a live customer conversation. AI will play the customer, and this relationship manager has to advise the customer. And just like what you saw with Shivaji, this is all going to happen in real time. Relationship managers can use this kind of a simulation for unlimited drill and practice of complex customer conversations. They can get live instant feedback and support as well. Before we get into this, we can select preferences. So I'll select the proficiency level of the RM as intermediate. Customer mood, what do I practice? What do I want to practice with? I can also select that. Let me retain anxious and an existing customer. So in normal days, Gaurav manages P&L, but today we've convinced him to play the relationship manager. He has a meeting set up with a customer, and let's get right in.
Thank you, Ruchi. First of all, let me just tell you it's her birthday today. So whatever she says, we have to accept. Because I was actually expecting a calm and cooperative customer with her instead of anxious. That would have been much better. But as do whatever the lady says. Okay, so talking about it, and when we probably get into this customer conversation, I think all of you would have gone through multiple calls from the relationship managers of your bank. Ki sir, ye le lo, mutual fund, insurance, so and so and so forth. And that is what it is, right? Now think from just reverse the table, right? Technically, I was that poor RM which you were talking about.
So you were
That's
calling
HR.
them for credit cards and
Yeah,
everything.
so I would have called for those credit cards and insurance and investments maybe some time back. Now imagine, मुझे बोला जाता है, and probably this is like first week of joining a bank. There are my ex-bankers sitting here. There are some, I would not name the bank which I was working for, but go, and I'm like rookie in a way. Just walked into post my MBA into the relationship management world, and say, okay, these are the products. Go get your prospects list done and go and sell. Open accounts, open mutual fund accounts, demat accounts, and just go and sell. I will like, okay, I will sell. Not that I was prepared per se. I will typically go, sir, you know, XYZ bank is a great bank. We have great products, ye wo. And sir, would you like to have insurance? Do you have a mutual fund portfolio? Sir, SIPs are doing very good. You would have seen the campaign called Mutual Fund Sahi Hai Kule. At that time, it was not there though. But that's how it was, right? And I don't know what to expect. What I was told was, अलग-अलग profiles होती हैं, एक risk profiling होती है जिसमें एक conservative होता है, एक aggressive होता है, एक neutral होता है, and so forth. And you typically go if you're getting like 2 lakh rupees. You want this? Okay. If you're getting 2 lakh rupees from the customer, 30% इसमें डाल दो, 60% equity में डाल दो, 20% debt में डाल दो, 10% FD में कर दो, or whatever liquid में रखे रहने दो. That's how it was. And I was expecting a similar question from the client. But when you walk into the real world, the things are very different. And the unfortunate part is because the client expects you that you are a professional relationship manager. Now, how I, as a rookie relationship manager who has just walked into the banking world, maybe like 2 weeks back, how would you expect me to even talk sense? Let me put it that way. And how can I manage money when I myself, for the first time, will be earning in my life? And I'm managing a portfolio worth lakhs and lakhs. So it's a difficult situation. And so that's where we tried to do certain simulation. We tried to manage something which can be a big tool of advice for such kind of RM. So before walking in to meet the clients, he can or she can get enough and more drill and practice. And let's just probably show you the demo, and we can obviously take in details later, depending on the time. Okay, so as soon as you typically go there, you are talking to Abhas Kumar. So I know that the call is coming of Abhas Kumar. Let me just click it. Hi, Abhas. Good morning. This is Gaurav Nigam, your relationship manager. How are you today? This is all AI built in, so I do not know. Okay. Now imagine. So Mr. AI has shown. Oh, Gaurav Nigam, my relationship manager. How do you do, sir? Let me.
Yeah, it'll speak.
Let me cut to the chase. My medical situation has taken a serious turn. I've been diagnosed with terminal cancer and I'm grappling with what's next. I'm considering selling off some properties, relocating to my cottage in the hills, and perhaps setting up a donor advised fund. Could you guide me through this situation?
That is where I said, don't get an anxious customer. A calm and cooperative one would have been much easier. Cut to the chase
RMs
directly.
can't choose. They get
That is the problem
any
that
customer, any situation.
Yeah, but still. Okay, let me just figure out. This was 15 years back, Sapnesh, so hold on. Yeah, I can get advice. Let me just try. Hi, Abbas. I'm really sorry to hear about your situation, but we will be definitely able to help you on managing your property needs and selling. And great to hear about your already old cottage in Hills. And just wanted to understand where are these properties located, so I can accordingly help in managing your situation there. Some response, because like I said, it's like you will are completely off guard. None of the FAQs in a bank will talk about this kind of scenario. Okay, now
You might see a little lag between text and video.
Thank you, Gaurav. Your empathy is appreciated. To answer your question, one of my properties is located in South Mumbai. I also have an apartment in London, plus a beachfront villa in Goa. As for my cottage, it's nestled in the serene hills of Himachal Pradesh. My intentions are also rooted in philanthropy. I want to participate in charity in some manner, perhaps through a donor advised fund like I mentioned. Can you tell me more about this?
I wish he could just adopt me. Any which ways. Sure, Abbas, I will be happy to help you. Just wanted to check, which are these properties which you want to sell, or is it like all the properties? Also, I want to understand, is it because of the diversification in assets, or you have a liquidity issue or a challenge? Or is it maybe that you want to just sell off everything and just move to Himachal Pradesh? I'm just trying to create that conversation. Now, that could be anything, but whatever.
So while you're doing that, it's rating you.
Yeah.
Yeah, do notice how this interface is facilitating the learning after
After
Abbas.
the diagnosis, my priorities in life have changed. My goal is to make sure my remaining time is spent worry-free, surrounded by the peaceful mountain scenery. I also want to ensure a sizable portion of my wealth is used for good causes. Hence the interest in setting up a donor advice fund. Money isn't a concern as much as time nowadays.
Right. Look at the left side of this interface. If during the conversation Gaurav wants to explore more about the customer's profile, he can click any of those. Abbas Kumar is a gold loyalty customer with the bank and has a relationship value of about 3 crores. And as he's talking, there is instant scores sticking on that scoreboard. So he's getting scores on 4 prefed parameters. He's getting star rating. And at the bottom, you would see he's also getting descriptive feedback. Your empathy and patience in dealing with such a sensitive situation is commendable. It would also give improvement areas. And for his next response, he can immediately refine his response.
And frankly, I really don't know how to create a donor fund. Genuinely, I don't know. So I do not know how to advise. So is there a way I can manage it? Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. There's research center that Gaurav can go to and get advice from the expert.
So see, automatically, basis the conversation which is happening, it will ask you certain questions. How to ensure a smooth transition to peaceful living? Or what are the options to maximize effect of charitable giving? So assuming I want to go ahead with this, or I have some other question, then I can always just type it down here and ask. Let me just go and see what the AI says. So it says, donor advice fund is a great way to maximize the effectiveness of charitable giving. It allows you to make charitable contribution, receiving an immediate tax benefit, and then recommend grants from fund over time. A DAF essentially becomes a dedicated account for charitable giving, being able to fund the tax-free on this thing. So basis this, let me at least talk about the donor fund and how the tax benefits and all of that can be probably managed.
Does that advice sound realistic? Any bankers, does that sound okay to you?
Or
would you
maybe
advise-
any other question. See, frankly, this is open. See, this is as we speak, it is all real time. We can change the conversation. We can do whatever we do not know. We can always say we can come back to you later. Or we can talk about what he wants. See, it's drill
Anyone
and
wants
practice.
to, let's put somebody on the spot. Do you want to try answer that question?
Or
Anyone?
maybe another question on this.
Yeah, or ask a different question.
Yeah, Abhishek, you want to try? That is how it is. Sir, charity करने से अच्छा bank में दे दो. We will also make something any which ways. So let me just try here again. Now, so in last he said that I have changed and everything. He wants to probably sell off all the properties. Sure, I understand that liquidity is not an issue, but then you would not want to maintain and manage those many properties, Abhas. We can help you set up a donor advice fund that can genuinely help you in managing your taxations needs, and it can lower down the overall tax from day one itself. We will have to also maybe take help of attorney who can help us setting up this kind of fund. At the same time, you'll also have to see what the beneficiaries' goals would be. Let's just say a random question. Let's go. How do I go back?
Absolutely, Gaurav. I'm interested to know more about setting up the trust fund you mentioned. Also, involving the legal expert sounds like a good plan considering tax implications and legalities of the situation. I'm hoping this move will alleviate potential tax burdens and some complexity given the circumstances.
Perfect. So I think it was not a bad reply, basis the helpline or whatever you say, save a lifeline in Amitabh Bachchan's term. But yeah, and you can actually, sorry, I think I just was.
But the good thing is he can do unlimited practice of this. If he's not satisfied, he can restart and do the practice again. He'll get a new situation.
Please clarify what you mean by helpline.
That's how it is, guys, right? So this is the real-time practice tool. Yeah, now maybe I may just try to divert this entire thing because frankly,
Or you can come back after a couple of
or maybe I can just try to divert him to a mutual fund investment. What he was,
all right,
or maybe let me just try because that's the end of the day. Insurance or mutual fund to बेचना ही है ना उसे. वो सब करते रहेंगे हम property. Okay, so sure, Abhas. What I will do, I will try to set up a meeting next week with our tax consultant who can help you set up the DAF. At the same time, you remember last time we spoke about a great mutual fund option which has just got launched by XYZ mutual fund company, and it has great investment option. You may want to try that. That will also help you in generating regular income once you are there in the hills. Let's just see, because end of the day, बेचने आए हैं sir, तो बेच तो जाएंगे कुछ हो. Well, that's how it is, right? That's the life. Yeah, that's like a good plan, Gaurav. And that's what you always want to. Oh, उसने legal counsel के बारे में बोला.
That sounds like a good plan, Gaurav. A meeting with our legal counsel could help me understand more about this. Let's proceed with that. And could you give me more details about this newly launched mutual fund by the XYZ company?
Perfect. So I think this is what it is, guys. So you may want to try to divert. So sometimes in a real life scenario, we may not be able to generally say whether he will like it, not like it, how do we probably get into and all of this thing. And that is where the idea is. You can try to make your own conversations. There are, like we were just discussing, there are hundreds and thousands of those kind of scenarios which will come to you. You do not know what kind of scenario is coming to you. It also educate a relationship manager, obviously, and we have not talking about the mutual fund and insurance because they have that product knowledge in their blood. It is also about multiple other asset classes which they may not even think about, and it will technically come over. So that is how what we typically try to say. Yeah, Ruchi.
You actually did quite well. Your professionalism and patience has been commendable, also maintaining a good relationship. Let's look at the overall summary.
And we can continue on and on because...
Yeah. What went well? You effectively managed the conversation with patience and professionalism. Knowledge about financial product is evident. And you have areas of improvement too. Even though you've done great, try to ensure the client completely understands the financial product suggested. Use simple terminology wherever possible.
Correct. So
let me ask you this question. Obviously, you didn't have benefit of this 15 years ago. Would something like this have benefited you if you were able to do a bunch of these scenarios in a safe situation before you actually walked into?
Absolutely, Sapnesh, and that is what I was actually telling that, and I'm sure there are a lot of these bankers sitting here. They know what everybody
Let's ask
through.
them. I mean, you
maybe,
work
yeah,
for
correct.
NIIT,
I
so
am
you'll
not the one.
obviously
Yeah,
see it.
I any which way is passed, right? With whatever, 63, 65%, whatever. That is still okay. 5 on 5 on the star rating. Yeah, I could have continued and have still, but then maybe anybody. Abhishek. something like this will work, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's quite comprehensive for a banker as long as you can feed in enough information into the AI platform. I think what I liked about the entire concept is that for a relationship manager, especially the ones who join us, in the first 90, 100 days, for him to absorb multiple products, especially in the investment side, and it's quite large, he will have to kind of break it down. And if the AI is able to prompt him some bit of information, I see a lot of value in this.
Excellent. And again, we can discuss this further.
Yeah.
We'll get Greg and Brandon back while Manish, you ask your question.
Yeah, I mean, very interesting tool and nice application of AI. What I was wondering was that at banks, we have enough repository of data. Let's say we've recently launched a platform, so we have a lot of video recordings with the audio transcripts, etc. One use case could be actually, the RMs and the supervisors kind of really analyzing those calls. So what I really liked was that if we have enough repository of data, right, and how do we make good use of the data so that the RMs can also kind of do a self-improvement on that.
In
And
fact,
there could be a lot
what you
of...
said is so important. This is saying time is up, that's why. But what you're saying is so important. What we did do in this is you have the ability to go in as a manager and review how the conversation was. It in fact also gives you a bunch of dashboards to figure out what might be areas where Gaurav might need more training. And then it'll also help you point to the right training and then get them back into the scenarios so that the next time the guy goes out, the guy is prepared.
See, one perspective, Yogesh this side. See, I think if you look at a real life situation, if I've been a customer, I think there was empathy which was missing. It slightly looks to be mechanical to me, because when somebody is saying that somebody is diagnosed with a terminal kind of a disease and he's looking for, and still at the end of the call, you are still wanting to sell a mutual fund to him, the better way would have been that next time when I'll come, I'll possibly also support you something which will sustain you during your hill days, rather than trying to attempt to sell it. And the system says it's a good job. I think we need to do something there as well. So possibly some empathy part is missing in that machine.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
The point is completely noted, frankly. The only thing is I wanted to make it like a normal scenario thing, because so in a normal real world, that's how some of these things will work.
What Gaurav is saying is he's actually an empathetic person. But
correct. I am pretty much an empathetic person. But thanks. Over to you, Brandon and Greg.
Thanks.
Manish only. Okay.
The kind of way that coaching happens is actually all run off of a rubric that's really good. And adding an empathy dimension to it is something that we can definitely do. So that's great feedback, and we'll work that in. I appreciate it.
Where do we go from here, Greg? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. So we were working our way up our pyramid to the top. So, I mean, we don't, the top level of our pyramid is something that we are working towards. We still don't have an instance of an AI personal tutor. But just really quickly, now that you've seen some of the things that AI can do in terms of interactive learning experiences, just imagine an AI that can do those things and more. That can do a whole range of different kinds of learning interactions. Think of anything you've ever seen even that's been that you think is an effective learning experience. And imagine the AI doing that interactively with learners one-on-one. And then imagine all of those capabilities, all at the disposal of an AI that, as I said before, is basically responsible for you, the individual. And in deciding what to do next, what's the optimal going to be able to take account of a bunch of inputs. Not only, what's, its understanding of your psychology, and you as a learner, but, the company context, what the company you work for is trying to do in terms of talent strategy and so on, the job context, what you were doing and what you're expected to do in the job day to day. The training, the training context in the sense of the previous training you've taken and so on and so forth. So if you imagine the idea being able to process all these different inputs and make the smartest possible decision at every moment about what the optimal learning experience is for you, the individual, right now, that's what we're going to be looking at in, maybe 5 years when everything comes together. So I think, that's our vision of the future. Now, the other question, before we wrap it up is, how do we get to this future, right? How do we create the ability to build all of these novel learning experiences, make sure they're secure and safe, and so on and so forth. So, we've actually created a platform. We call it, we're calling it the AI Factory. But the platform does a number of things for us. It allows secure and completely compliant interaction with these large language models and other generative AIs that we connect to. And to do that, we simply basically follow the instructions of companies like Microsoft and OpenAI, who are essentially guaranteeing that if you follow their protocols, these interactions are completely secure. They're not, the data that goes in, it's not being used to train the AI on it, it's not being stored anywhere, it's not, subject to, being let loose outside of the company. It's the platform we're building is future-proof because it's open-ended. So it's as I said, close to the beginning of the talk, we have all these different tools, and they're all vying with each other to be the most valuable tool. And that competition is ongoing. So, and new tools are being added all the time. So, we have an architecture that allows the sort of plug-and-play access to whatever the latest tool is. It offers up the different learning experiences in a kind of app store model. So, you can sort of, choose between, any number of different kinds of learning experiences and run that on the same platform. It's deployable inside a firewall, so this is something we can build for our clients to deploy this inside the firewall, so it's completely secure. It handles data analytics, it collects data, it stores it from all the kind of learning interactions you just saw. So, it's possible to come up with all kinds of fantastic data showing, what happens as people work through things like the kind of simulations you just saw. Where they struggle, which things are unique, so on and so forth, what training is needed to sort of grow up with based on that. And we have, of course, a team of experts to back that up. So, I won't go into the, architecture. This is something that maybe, if people are interested in hearing more about this, can have some sort of follow-ups. But essentially, supporting this set of AI apps, we have, layers of secure connections that, Dan allows us to hook up with all of the major generative AI models. And this will support, teams that are helping create new apps and refine prompts, teams of administrators, making sure that everything is sort of running smoothly and data is being collected. And most importantly, users who through plugins can have these kind of experiences embedded in, otherwise, normal e-learning courses and, other sort of straightforward ways that they can get access as they go through their training. So if this sounds interesting, this is something we created basically because there's a need to help facilitate our customers being able to start experimenting now, start using this stuff now, and still keep future-proof, so that as
I think that's the big
tools
deal.
change and things get better. Yeah,
That's
go ahead.
really the big deal where, a lot of us are wanting to do things with AI. A lot of us feel we can do it, but we hesitate. We hesitate because
IT let us do it? Will our company allow us to do it? Will we show up as good or will it fail? But I think we can work together. We have invested a fair bit in the AI factory. You could lease it from us, try it out till the corporation that you work for is ready to create your own model. But thanks for taking the time. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Brandon. I know it's late for you. Long session, but thanks for the patience.